Hi and welcome to week 12, back with the videos after some very busy weeks. And this one is called Four Corners of the World, and for once it's normal piecing, so there's no need for any foundation templates. So to make this block we're going to need from fabric A 2 3 7/8 inch squares and one 2.5 by 2.5 inch square. From fabric F we're going to need one 3 7/8 by 3 7/8 inch square, and then you need to cut 8 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares, but subcut them in half diagonally to make 16 triangles. You're also going to need 4 2 by 2 squares of fabric D and one 3 7/8 by 3 7/8 inch square of fabric H. So we're going to start by making the corner blocks. These are the square in a square blocks, and I can't remember how tiny these were when I made them. So you're going to take one of your D squares, so these are 2 by 2, 2 by 2. Fold them in half, finger press it, fold it in half again, and finger press it. That just gives you an idea on the edges of where you're going to be lining up for the centre of your triangles. Then take your triangles and fold those in half and just finger press down at the bottom so you've got a mark. Do that with all 4 of them. We make these slightly oversized so they can be trimmed down at the ends, because we've got to make sure that we've definitely got that 1/4 inch overhang available as the seam allowance. Okay, so all those have been finger pressed so I can see where they now go. So to do this we just take them, put them right sides together, line up your 2 folds, and then take that to the machine and sew 1/4 inch across. Okay, bringing that back, we've sewn 1/4 inch across, and we're just going to fold that back, and I'm just going to finger press it at this point. Now, I do these opposite sides together because it gives you an easy way of lining them up. So we're going to put the opposite one on the side, line up your 2 folds, and then we're going to sew again another 1/4 inch. Okay, so fold back, finger press it down, and then we just need to add the other 2 sides exactly the same way. Line up your centres that you folded. There we go. Sew it across to get the 1/4 inch. So once you've made all 4 of them and you're ready to square these off, we need to make sure that we are maintaining a 1/4 inch at the side of the points. That's so that we don't end up losing our points when we come to add them into the block. Now, by the magic of TV, I've just made the complete block and found that I'd only taken photos instead of having it on video. So here I am, back again to make it a second time. So for this, put your square onto your block and you're trying to make sure that you've got that 1/4 inch. Now for this one, it's probably not the right way to do it, but I prefer to just take a little bit at a time off, making sure that I've still got that 1/4 inch, and then I can square it at the final hurdle to the correct size. So at the moment I'm actually going bigger than I need to, just to make sure that I've got that 1/4 inch guidance. Okay. Now that we're in there, make sure your diagonal line goes corner to corner. As you can see, it's just slightly bigger at the moment than 2.5. But I still want to make sure that I'm maintaining enough of a seam allowance to make it possible at the end. And there we go. 1 2.5 inch square block. So you need 4 of those for the corners, which will look like this when it's done. So for the next part, we need one of our red squares. I'm afraid mine have had to change colour because I didn't have enough more fabric to redo them. We're going to draw a diagonal line on the back of one of them. Put them right sides together and you're going to sew 1/4 inch on either side of the drawn line. Back at the mat, there's our sewn line either side. We're going to cut along the drawn line. That will release 2 half square triangles for us. Do not square them down at the moment, we'll do that at the end once we've made the hourglasses. Iron those towards the dark side. Once pressed nice and flat, just put those to one side, and we're going to now make the same using our gold and our red. One of them again needs to have a diagonal line drawn across it. And we're going to do exactly the same process, right sides together, so 1/4 inch either side of the drawn line. Cut again along the drawn line to make 2 half square triangles and press them open towards the darker fabric. Okay, so now we're going to need to put them in pairs, and we're going to be placing them so that the white one is to the red and the red is to the gold. We need to make sure that the seams nest up along the middle, because what we want to do when we peel this back is to create an hourglass, and we want to make sure that that line across the middle is correct. Now you've got quite a bit of playroom with these before we square them down, but at this point it's handy sometimes to put a pin through the middle seam, just to make sure, as you can see, that doesn't come through on the central side. We're making sure that it's actually aligned as it should be. Some people say they can feel it. I really don't feel like I can feel it, so I always put the pin just to be sure, and you can check that and make sure that you're happy with where it is. This one's a bit crooked. We just need to then draw a diagonal line crossways, and then we're going to sew 1/4 inch either side of the diagonal line. So there we are, back at the mat. We have sewn 1/4 inch either side of our drawn line. We're going to cut down the middle, and that will reveal our hourglass. We can then press them towards the darker patch and repeat that for the other one. These now need squaring down to 2.5, so they're quite big at the moment. There are 3 methods of doing this. One is just using your square, moving it to 2.5 and then trimming. I like to use the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, and this is ideal when you're doing half square triangles, but it comes into its own for the hourglass blocks. So this particular tool works for my brain. It has a line up the centre which you line up with your seam line down the middle, and then a dotted line that you line up with the seam line at the bottom. All you then need to do is trim off the edges, click into the slots, and there is your perfect 2.5 inch it's not half square, hourglass. It looks weird, this one, because it's got that white stripe in it. The other method that you can use is called a block lock. So another one of these fancy little devices. I like to try the ones and see which ones work for my brain. Unlike your normal square, which when you put that on will slide around, this has a grooved ridge in it, so it sort of traps and slides up and down where your seam is. For half square triangles it's fantastic. Obviously on this one we've got 2 sets of seams, so that can create its own little patterns of problem. But all you do with that is you slide it so that you are into position for your 2.5. Where's my 2.5? There. And this one really is just like the square, it's just it has that advantage of the lock on it. And then turn it around. That's fine, that's the other side. There we go. Put it on the right way up, it helps. Okay, which gives us our 2.5 squared hourglass. Now, I'm going to cheat for the next bit because I've already done this and made my block up, so I'm just going to talk you through the final steps. So you lay out all the pieces of your block, making sure that the yellow gold triangles are coming off of your centre square. Sew them together in rows, and then for the top row iron the seams outwards, for the middle row iron them inwards, and then for the bottom row iron them outwards. You can then join them all together, make sure those seams nest up, so when you do them, so you've got one going one way, one going the other, and sew it together with a 1/4 inch seam. Press your block flat, and that's going to give you your finished 4 corners of the world block. It is a dinky little block, and it's quite cute within the quilt in itself, and I look forward to seeing yours online later. Take care, bye.